Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Being Beautifully Honest channel and podcast. If you have not subscribed yet, please do go ahead and subscribe if you are on the podcast platforms. And if you are listening to this / watching this on YouTube, please do go ahead and hit that subscribe and go ahead and hit that like button. It's like walking into the room and hitting that light switch. And let's just go ahead and get into this conversation / reality chat. All right. Married to Medicine's final episode of the reunion, 3-part reunion, which, to be honest with you, it could have been 1 part in my honest opinion. And I just really had to talk about this back and forth that Quad had with Dr. Eugene, who is married to Toya. We know Toya and Quad have had their back and forths. They clearly are not friends. But you know what? I was one of those people in the beginning of Married to Medicine, especially after the fight between Toya and Mariah, who was no longer on the show. I really didn't care for Toya. And I was one of those people that I just really loved Quad's little quick quips and the little shady reads that she would do and whatever. But in my opinion, I felt like back then it was lighthearted and fun in the first season. Second season, it became a bit much, but I just was trying to still get to know these characters on the show. And when Quad and Mariah had their falling out, I really couldn't take Quad as much, and I believe there are a lot of people that preferred Quad over Mariah, which I guess makes a lot of sense when it comes to Quad still being on the show and Mariah not being on the show. And I don't know. I mean, there's some crazy things that happens in life. I get it. But for a show that was my concept and my idea, to have someone that used to be a friend of mine to continue to be on the show, I don't know how that would sit with me, but hey, it's not my baby, so I have nothing to do with it. Just my thoughts. But Quad is so much. She has these long-winded, like, soliloquies when she is discussing things, and she always, in my opinion, tries to sound like she's the smartest person in the room, even though she's surrounded by doctors. Okay, I'm just saying, we still don't know what she does for a living. It's almost like if you ever watched the sitcom back in the day, Martin, and Martin's friend Tommy was on the show, and it was, okay, Tommy, what do you do for a living? Where do you work? No one knew what he did for a living, and that was the running joke with that show. And yes, being on Married to Medicine is a job for these people. And at this point, these people are co-workers and they are not friends. So we get it. This is her job. But what else do you do for a living? Because all of these other people on this show are either medical professionals or married to the medical professional. It is really weird to have Quad on this show, not married to anyone, don't know who she's dating, don't really know much about her personal life besides her nephew and her mom. And look, this is my opinion, so I'm sharing my thoughts. In my opinion, I feel and felt that the nephew thing with the nephew living with her part-time was a storyline. I felt that because when I first saw it, when it first started coming on the show, the season, it appeared as if her brother unfortunately lost his life and she took in the child. That's the way they made it look, at least. And I'm not even saying that's the way Quad made it look, but the way it was aired, that's the way they made it seem. Because at first she didn't say anything about the child's mother. And then several episodes down the line, probably close to the end of the season, we see the nephew's mother show up. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, where was she? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I was thinking. That's the thought that came up. And then she says, well, on the show, I believe it was a moment where she was having the confessional with the camera. She says, well, she's moving down here and getting settled, so it's best for him to stay with me for now until she gets situated and settled. That huge house that you have, Quad, and you brag about how you did it all on your own. Why wouldn't you just let this woman live with you? I mean, that probably would have been a more believable storyline to me if the child and the mother were living with her, or at least you show us that's the case, even if it wasn't really the truth. I mean, I'm not saying lie to us, but show us that on camera. Because when the mother showed up at that time to show up for dinner, it almost made it seem more like, oh yeah, okay, this is why you're doing this. This is for a story. This is to tug on the heartstrings of the viewers, to make people feel like you have a reason to be here, when in all honesty, I don't feel that she does. I believe that she needs to go. Listen, if you saw the back and forth between her and Dr. Eugene, I was extremely uncomfortable. And some people may say, well, he had no right speaking to a woman like that. If she was alone and she didn't have a man sitting next to her or sitting behind her or standing behind her to back her up, he shouldn't have been addressing Quad. But then Quad has no problems squaring up and addressing Dr. Eugene, and that's exactly what she did. She did it on Twitter and she did it on the show. So, you know, there was some questions about some things that Toya says that may be embarrassing to Dr. Eugene. Of course, you know, it was brought up by Andy and whatever. And then Quad, she interjects. And she says that she felt bad for Eugene and said, they have what they have in their household. I'm not in their marriage, but I'm just saying any person that would endure that could possibly be hurt. I mean, that's a person's manhood. I think that he's always looking out for Toya and supporting her and cleaning up for her. He's always on aisle 5 with the mop and the broom, dustpan, and Lysol. So he responds to what Quad says and says, you know, your jokes were probably worse than anything Toya's said. And then, you know, he says, for somebody who claims she's not in our marriage, she's always saying stuff about our marriage. So then Quad gets in her feelings and she starts talking about, well, you call yourself shaming me. You guys call yourselves divorce shaming me. Because at Quad's holiday party housewarming situation, they brought her a gift basket, and in the gift basket there was a t-shirt that had the word diva on it, and the D in diva stood for divorced. Now, it was supposed to be a joke t-shirt, and she did a confessional to the camera, and she said, okay, so Toya, you say that, you know, I'm divorced. Yes, I am. I'm happily divorced, which you want to be. So she was shading her too. And then Dr. Eugene says, well, you said thank you for it. So then Quad brings up the fact that there was a Snuggie in there, and saying that, you know, this will keep you warm in this big old house since you're alone. And then Quad brought it to social media. So Toya brings that up and says, and you counter and go on social media and call my husband the P word and Eugene. And I said the P word, but I meant, you know, the B word, the BITCH. And Quad says, no, you know, I didn't call him the B word. But she said, but that's exactly what you meant. That's exactly what you meant. She said, you might as well. You called him Eugene and then said he was a female. So Eugene asks Quad, like, you know, what do you got against us? And Quad says, I have nothing against you guys. And then he kind of yelled a little bit and says, then quit talking about us. And then so Quad says, then shut your mouth about me. But here's the thing. Quad dishes things, but she really can't take it. She can't take anything that is perceived or she perceives as being negative. If you watch the reunion, Andy asked her about, well, I don't even think he asked Quad if she gets fillers, because Anila's husband does that for a living. So he was being messy as he usually is, and he asked Anila what she thought about Quad if she gets any fillers or Botox or anything, and then Quad says, no, I don't do any of that stuff. I'm the most beautiful woman on this stage. And Anila, she was like, well, no comment. And I guess she just didn't really want to go there, and she didn't want the smoke and drama with Quad. So, Quad's like, well, what do you mean by that? No comment. I'm the most beautiful person on this stage. It's just the arrogance for me, the pitting yourself against other people like you're better than everyone else, and on those types of comments. And it's just really aggravating and annoying. And then dishing things that you can't take. When we know Toya and her husband have moved several times. We know that. That definitely has been discussed several times. But there was the news that came out years ago where they were having some tax issues. And Quad was being dirty. She was being shady. But she did what she did when she brought a basket to Toya's house, and she had ramen noodles and some other things in there that was really implying that you guys need to cut back and stop living above your means. So you may need to eat some Franks and beans and some ramen noodles and things like that, knowing that Toya has expensive taste, knowing that Toya loves to live a certain type of lifestyle. She is married to a man that tries his best to do what he can to support her. And Toya's making great money on this show, as well as, I believe, some other ventures that she just doesn't display to us on the television show. Because when she was on the reunion, she showed some check stubs of things that, she's done that she gets paid for, whether it's brand deals or whatever, things like that. So it's almost as if Quad doesn't remember what she did back in the day when she came to their house with that basket. So many years later, Toya is doing something similar to throw shade at Quad, and Quad didn't like it. And in the last season, Quad didn't like the fact that Toya was talking about her home and calling it an apartment. And, when Quad brought that basket to the house, Toya didn't get upset with her. She didn't try to retaliate against her after the fact. I'm not saying that Toya liked it, but she actually did just kind of laugh it off at the time. And she was, for the sake of, I believe, the show, just trying to be cordial with Quad, and has done so for the most part. So, in my opinion, I really believe that Quad just holds on. She holds on to things really, really tough. She doesn't like it when people, what she perceives comes for her and makes comments about her that she doesn't see as flattering. She doesn't see as putting her in a good light. But she has done things too. She has accused Mariah of using drugs on the reunion, and Mariah actually did a hair follicle test to prove that that wasn't true, and it was just kind of dismissed. But we're supposed to believe you because you brought in this paper result from a polygraph test? Like, who cares? And then when Quad, in, I believe it was the first season, at the end of the first season, if you go back and watch that season and you see the end of the first season, Quad made some allegations about Toya and her husband being, I believe, arrested for a DUI or something like that. And Quad was like, what are you talking about? Who told you that? Who gave you that information? And so ever since then, there's been this back and forth thing. They are never going to be friends. That is really explicit and clear. And then Quad really didn't like the fact that after Quad got divorced and Quad was still on the show, they were planning to have these couples trips. And Toya said that she didn't feel that Quad should be going on the couples trips with them. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. In my opinion, who wants to be a fifth wheel? Who wants to be the single person going on a couples trip? To me, it seems desperate and tired. That's just my opinion, guys, but I'm just saying the fact that she would want to be there, and she was adamant at that table when that discussion was made, And she said, I will go on trips and I will be on couples trips. It was like, why? Like, that's how I felt about it when I heard her saying that. I'll have to go back to see which season that was and where they were when that was said. But I explicitly remember that conversation, and I remember Quad just standing in defiance to say that, well, I don't care if I'm not married. I'll go on couples trips with you guys too. And it just, to me, made her look desperate and tired. Why do you want to be on couples trips with couples when you aren't married anymore? And say what you will about her ex-husband, Dr. Greg. I don't believe Quad ever really wanted what this man wanted, because he made it clear that he wanted to have children. I don't believe Quad wants to have children. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I believe that she was wanting this man to be like Dr. Eugene is. He loves his wife. Say what you will about what he looks like. Say what you will about their finances and their household and, you know, and all of those different things like that. But it is clear that he really does love his woman, his wife. And Quad wished she had a man that was like that. I'm not saying she wants a man that looks like him. It has nothing to do with the looks. I'm talking about the attributes. He works really hard. He considers his wife. They have, you know, they have a good, tight family unit. They really do. And Dr. Gregory wasn't taking a lot of the BS that she tried to shell out. It is okay for a woman to want to be independent and try to have it all on her own if that's what you really want to do. But Quad was, I believe, in this position when she was married to Dr. Greg to get her in position to be where she is now. Because if it were not for that marriage, she would have never been a part of this show. Because I remember how Mariah said that she fought for her to be a part of the show because they were scheduled to have the wedding, and I guess at first it got called off. So they were already having problems. So I don't believe Quad was ever really 100% happy in that relationship. I just don't. If you remember those things, you recall. If you don't recall, go back and look at it if you watch this show, but you just haven't seen those previous seasons. I remember that. And so when Quad reacted to Dr. Eugene and to Toya the way that she has, to me, it was just like the final nail in the coffin for me to say, Quad, please get your things and go. Exit stage left. You really do not need to be back on this show anymore. But Quad loves the fame. She loves the attention. She definitely loves the money. I'm sure she really needs it now that she bought this home. And I don't really know what else she does, you know, for a living. And of course, that's not to say that she didn't make any money in the past and have to, you know, have had the opportunity to make investments and things that would help her money to grow. But if you don't really have continuous revenue coming in, then those things, you can use it all overnight. You literally can. So I just believe that Quad should no longer be a part of this show, and she can dish it, but she definitely cannot take it. So you let me know your thoughts. Thank you for liking and subscribing. And until the next time, this is Beth, and I'm just being beautifully honest.